Dan.
Sorry, I'm looking for the other half. Yeah, are we going to go on?
Rita, you
Yes,
moving
ma'am.
on?
I'm trying.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now, there's still some seats on the galleries. Those who are standing, if you wish to take a seat, there are seats here on my left. And I think there's still some available spaces on the right. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. In the event of an emergency, we have the main exit here in front of me. There's an exit here on my right, and you can exit also through the auditorium on my left and out via the door beneath the tower. I'd like, on behalf of the Enniskeane Development Group and the Patrick Kavanagh Society, to welcome all our distinguished guests to the Patrick Kavanagh Centre. The exhibition, as you can see, has been moved to make some room here, and we're about to undertake major renovations. And we hope to see you all back when this centre reopens. I'd like to welcome all our public representatives, our TDs, senators and councillors, and our Chief Executive Officer, Eamon O'Sullivan from Monaghan County Council. And of course, I welcome you, the followers and admirers of Patrick Kavanagh. First of all, I'm going to call on the Cathaoirleach of Monaghan County Council, Councillor Cathy Bennett, to address the meeting. Councillor Bennett.
So, a very good afternoon to you all here today, and a very warm welcome to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the poet Patrick Kavanagh. It is a great pleasure that we welcome you all today, especially Fergal O'Quigley, who has come on behalf of Minister Humphreys, Fiona Jane Hislop, Cabinet Secretary of in the Scottish Government, TDs, Senators, Councillors, distinguished guests, and of course all the local school children. I would like to begin by acknowledging a debt of gratitude to the very important people here today, especially those who recited the poems at the graveyard. They were excellent. Thank you. I would also like to commend the Enniskeane Development Group, whose committee has managed and run the centre and have done so since it opened its doors in 1994. They are very dependent on volunteer support, and this is a huge undertaking for any community group. I believe it is an important day today, and we acknowledge that if it weren't for their trudged efforts and personal sacrifice on part of the individuals of this committee, the church, the centre, would have fallen into dereliction. The same can be said for the Poets' Rest coffee shop and the Church of Ireland Church, and his historic graveyard and round tower by the river. They would have suffered a similar fate. But because of the sterling work of a handful of individuals, with the support of the community, these invaluable heritage assets have been saved from posterity, and County Monaghan is certainly richer for this. They have kept the Kavanagh flame burning through their dedication and hard work, and that deserves a round of applause, in my opinion. A lot of excellent work has been done, and now it is the question of moving forward from here. And we are pulling together the various stakeholders behind a new vision for celebrating this son of Monaghan. Bringing Kavanagh to life means injecting new life, new ideas and new resources, be they financial, human or technical, in the centre and the wider area. In his speech, the Chief Executive, Eamon O'Sullivan of Monaghan County Council, will outline the plans for the redevelopment of this building, and also the work of arts consultants Doran Brown, who will provide tailored Kavanagh vision for moving forward. Put simply though, what we are attempting to do is two main aims. One, to enhance Kavanagh's reputation and to raise his profile so that his work is better known and appreciated and much more accessible to a wider audience. The second aim is to increase the number of visitors to the Kavanagh Centre and the various significant sites in Kavanagh country so that the immediate area and county will benefit from his legacy. Today's commemoration event, which was organised by Monaghan's Culture team in conjunction with the Patrick Kavanagh Centre, can be seen as a sign of our intent for the future. I'd like to thank those involved in organising the event, which was funded through the Creative Ireland initiative, and I hope to attend many more successful events in this revamped building in the near coming years. Gormila mai agah galéir.
Thank you, Kathy. I would now like to call on Eamon O'Sullivan, Chief Executive Officer of Monaghan County Council. Eamon.
Minister Hislop, Fergal, on behalf of the Minister, members of the Oireachtas, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly the Kavanagh family members that are here today. Firstly, I think after such a truly unique and special commemoration, I feel very inadequate to follow up on the words that we heard at the graveside. And I really, while we couldn't give a round of applause because of the respect we were showing in the graveyard, I would ask you now to join with me and to give a very, very strong round of applause for our guests. It's such a privilege for me as Chief Executive to join with the Cathaoirleach and the members of the Council in being a small part of this special commemoration. Kavanagh has left a huge legacy and has gifted this county with the volumes of his work. As the Cathaoirleach mentioned, Art, Rosaleen and Larry and the rest of the members of the Kavanagh Resource Centre have carried that burden and have kept the flame and that legacy alive for the past 25 years, and they deserve such appreciation from us and gratitude from us for doing so. I think we in Monaghan County Council, working with the committee and the Inishkeen Development Association, recognise that there is a piece of work to be done if we were to further the work of the last 25 years. It starts with the physical infrastructure. And last year, working with the committee, we were very, very happy that Minister Humphreys awarded approximately €189,000 for structural works on the centre here. And Monaghan County Council are matching that so that the first phase of the development work will be to ensure that the structure is preserved and is fit for the purpose for which we intend to continue the development work. The second piece, in the second phase of our work then, is to look at, I suppose, making sure that what we have preserved and conserved is now enjoyed by visitors, both national and international, in a way, I suppose, that the modern visitor expects. And that means upgrading the visitor experience, using obviously digital media now to reach a wider audience and a younger generation that effectively expect that they will have so much at their fingertips. And I think we've got to try and actually ensure that we are catering to the needs of, I suppose, 21st century Ireland and beyond. And the second phase, we have an application in preparation at the moment to the Fáilte Ireland in their capital programme with regard to delivering on the second phase and updating and upgrading the whole interactive experience and the visitor experience. We also have, I think, embarked, hopefully, or taken a very small step, or the first step, on also looking at ensuring that the artistic vision is, I suppose, nurtured and preserved and disseminated in the right way. And we're very fortunate that Sean Dorn and Liam Brown, whom I hope are here today, I haven't seen them, but I hope they are with us today, are arts consultants that are working on us to develop and to devise a strategy that will enable us then to move forward in the coming years and to ensure that I suppose that we do justice to this tremendous volume and legacy of work that has been presented to us. And we are custodians of that, and we must therefore be very careful in how we interpret it and how we actually try to make sure that we do it justice. And I think, the future potential of Kavanagh probably is really even beyond my imagination. But I think for his home place, for its hinterland, and bearing in mind that so much of what Kavanagh wrote about is still there and can still be experienced and can still be visited and is still intact, and that's truly remarkable as well. But we do have a duty to share that with, as I said, many of our people up and down the country and beyond. And I think that's a challenge for us, but one that I think Monaghan County Council are very confident that working with the members of the Resource Centre and the Inishkeen Development Association, developing a strong partnership with them, that together we can do him justice, and that actually that will be to the benefit of Inishkeen, to County Monaghan, and to, I suppose, look at visitor and tourism in the area as well. Once again, I must join with the Cathaoirleach in thanking the committee and the society for allowing us to be part of such a special commemoration today. I also wish to take the opportunity to thank my own staff, the culture team, who have worked very hard to actually, again, to prepare and ensure that today's event went so well. To thank Minister Hislop for joining us on this special occasion. And to thank each and every one of you for being part of, I think, what was such a special commemoration of Monaghan's most famous son. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, our next speaker is a native of Ayrshire who received her early education in Alloway, the birthplace of Scotland. We strove to develop this centre. Seamus Cassidy, Thomas Ruddy and the late Father Peter McGuinness visited the Burns Centre and were inspired by what they saw and the warm welcome they received there. So please give Minister Fiona Haslett, Cabinet Secretary for Culture, Tourism and External Affairs in the Scottish Government, a very warm Irish welcome.
Thank you very much. And first of all, can I thank in particular Rosaleen Carney, also Sorley McConnell and Cathy Bennett for the invitation to be here, and for Heather Humphreys to give me the opportunity to join with you today in what was such a precious cultural moment. And there can be no greater tribute to a poet than to hear poets of today reading works in the birthplace, and to hear those words spoken, I think is a great tribute to your son of Monaghan. And of course, to be here in Inniskeen, it's my first time here. It's my first time to visit the beautiful Oriel, and to be here to share with you in this commemoration, but also a celebration of remarkable work. And there can be no doubt the importance of poetry to this land, to this county, and to this country. And if poetry is the language of universal truths, sometimes truths that we want to hear and sometimes truths that we don't want to hear, those universal truths that are written by poets across the centuries are things that we want and we must hear and relate to. And I come from Alloway, which is the birthplace of our national bard, Robert Burns, and his work relates to the land, to the experience, to the harshness, not of the stony soil of Monaghan, but to the rough and challenge of the Ayrshire fields that he grew up in. And that sense of place and the poetry that expresses that sense of place, of love, is so important to all of us, and these are truths that reach out across time. I wish you well in your development of your centre here, and anything that we can share from Scotland and our experience, I would want to do so. So the richness that you have here, the preciousness of which you cherish your poetry, and the preciousness of that poetry of Kavanagh must be remembered. And Inniskeen, of course, is a place that he loved, where the fictional Ty Flynn looked at his fields with so much attention and affection. And it is, of course, on the Inniskeen Road that the bicycles went by in 2s and 3s, and where Kavanagh felt he was king of banks and stones and every blooming thing. So Inniskeen can rightly claim him and truly be proud of him. So it is a great privilege to be here, and poetry can link it and connect between counties, between countries and globally, and you have something very precious here. I wish you well in how you cherish it and nurture it and share it for the future. But it's been a great honour and a joy to mark the life of such a great writer and a poet, to learn more about your land, more about your relationship to place, and poetry, place and people will connect us for many years to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
Unfortunately, our Minister Heather Humphreys has been unable to attend this event due to circumstances beyond her control. But we have... That's life. C'est la vie. But our next speaker is Fergus O'Quigley, the Assistant Secretary General of the Department, and he's no stranger to County Monaghan. I believe he's been here on a number of occasions before, so I'd like you all to put your hands together and give him a warm welcome.
Thank you very much. I was discussing with Cabinet Secretary Hislop on the way down from the graveyard, and we said we can't possibly have an official to come at the end because there's nothing worse than that. So we said that Cabinet Secretary Hislop would speak at the end. First, it didn't quite work out. But look, it's a great honour for me to represent Minister Heather Humphreys. When the Scottish Government approached the Department to say that Fiona Hislop was coming to Dublin on the 30th of November, and there had been another unfortunate clash the previous time Minister Hislop was here, and we both agreed, Minister Humphreys says, I can't not meet her this time. But I can't not go to the Patrick Kavanagh event. This is going to be one of the big events in Monaghan this year. I have to be there. So there was no option but to ensure that Fiona Hislop came to Monaghan instead, and that not only that, we would have a little culture summit in Agnes Bourne's cottage a few miles away in Stephenstown. And everything went to plan until the phone call came at 9 o'clock this morning. Mr. Humphreys had to be in the Dáil chamber at 12 o'clock, and there was no option but to go. So I've been drafting at the last moment, and I'm sorry for the disappointment you all feel as a result of that. It will be a day of mixed emotions for the Minister. She really wanted to be here. It means a huge amount to her. She's invested, she's given some money to invest in the centre here. And she's, I suppose, in many respects, some people would say she's just been promoted as Minister for Business Enterprise and Innovation. So it will be a day of mixed emotion for her. So I'm now delivering her speech, which starts off as a proud native of Monaghan. Of course, I'm not a proud native of Monaghan, but I'm not too far away. I'm from Dundalk, and I'm very conscious that Inniskeen parish stretches into County Louth. My own mother... my own mother never missed the Patrick Kavanagh weekend, and she always came back regaling us at home with stories of the McCardle brothers, and it was a great pleasure to see the brothers reading at the Graveside this morning. My dad, however, according to my mum, considered Kavanagh a damn nuisance, as I think they had a few interactions in the streets of Dundalk in the 40s and 50s, where before Kavanagh went to Dublin, and where my dad worked all his life. So, with those couple of connections, obviously Enniskeen has been the inspiration for much of his work, and obviously ultimately became his final resting place just a few short steps away. Although Dublin was his home in later life, it is clear that Monaghan was never far from his thoughts. So it is very fitting to celebrate the life of this true son of Monaghan on the 50th anniversary of his death. His love of poetry started at a young age. He once said, "I majored in kicking a rag ball," and having left school at the tender age of 13, he became self-educated through extensive reading, and for 20 years lived a life as an ordinary young Irish farmer of that period, working the family holding. His parents bought a small farm for him at Shanco Duff Townland, and he participated in the normal pursuits of rural life, bought and sold at fairs and market, attended wakes, funerals and weddings of neighbours, and cycled to the local dances. This rural background was reflected in his first volume of poems, The Ploughman and Other Poems, which was published in 1936 by Macmillan, published to great acclaim. 2 years later, The Green Fool, which went into greater detail of his life in rural Monaghan, was published. Tarry Flynn, which was published in 1948, was banned initially for being indecent and obscene. It was, by definition, a fictional account of rural life, but more likely based on anecdotes that Kavanagh would have heard while living here. He was formed by his experiences in his native Monaghan, and later in his adopted Dublin. He constantly repeated country townland names to connect with his later native countryside. This style is repeated with street names in Dublin in his later poems. In fact, most of his poems are geographically rooted. When we had our little summit with Minister Humphreys a short while ago in Agnes Burns Cottage, Cabinet Secretary Hislop, very strong about the sense of place as part of our culture, of our identity in a globalising world, and by God, Kavanagh had that. Stony grey soil, which we heard this morning, clearly depicts his awareness of his surroundings. In that seminal work, he's ill at ease in a countryside and culture he condemns. Words such as clogged and burgled readily display his sense of desperation. Throughout his life, Kavanagh had a love-hate relationship with the area. In Dublin, he wrote many satirical poems condemning the prevalent hypocrisy of the literary and political establishment in Ireland. One wonders what he would have said about the events of the past few weeks, but I probably shouldn't say anything as a civil servant. In fact, he was never afraid to court controversy. His standout work in 1942, The Great Hunger, was seen by many as an attack on the Catholic Church in Ireland. Copies of the Horizon literary magazine in which it was published were seized by An Garda Síochána on the order of the Minister for Justice, Gerard Boland, brother of Harry. Ironically, only 4 years later, Kavanagh had a job on the Catholic magazine The Standard. A watershed moment in his writing career occurred following his operation for lung cancer in the mid-1950s. Sitting by the Grand Canal in Dublin after his operation, he seemed to have rediscovered his poetic voice. He said at that moment, "As a poet, I was born in or about 1955, the place of my birth being the banks of the Grand Canal." After his brush with death, he could look at life and nature with a newfound optimism and enthusiasm. Nature is glorified in the manner and content of his poetry written from then on. Kavanagh had come full circle and was at peace with himself and the world. Of course, many have been influenced by his works, not least James Heaney and Michael Longley. Heaney often citing Kavanagh as a major influence. So just to wrap up, Minister Humphreys once again has asked me to thank everybody involved in organising this wonderful day here today in Enniskeen to remember and celebrate Patrick Kavanagh, and she wishes everybody well in the work that's being done here locally to bring to the forefront an often overlooked giant of the Irish Literary Awards. As Patrick Kavanagh said in one simple line, outlining his practice of his art, "I dabbled in verse and it became my life. So I wish you all an enjoyable afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fergal. I now call on Ben Riedel, local singer and songwriter, to perform his acoustic rendition of Raglan Road. Ben Riedel. Following on Ben's rendition of Raglan Road, we will retire to the community centre for refreshments and the remainder of the programme. So, Ben Riedel.
It's an honor to do this. On Raglan Road of an autumn day, I saw her first in view. And her dark hair would weave a snare, and I might one day rue. I saw the danger, and I passed along the enchanted way, and I said, let grief be a fallen leaf at the dawning of the day. On Grafton Street in November, we tripped light along the ledge of a deep ravine where can be seen through words of passion play, and the Queen of Hearts still making sarks, and I not making hay. Oh, I love too much, and by such and such is happiness drawn away. I give her the gifts of the mind, I give her the secret signs. It's known to all the artists who have known true gods of sound and stone, and no words and tint without a stint. I give her the poems to say. We're owning there, and a shiny dark hair like clouds over fields in May. on a quiet street where all ghosts meet. I see her walking now, away from me so hurriedly. My reason must allow that I had loved not as I should, a creature that's made of clay. When the angel moves, the clay he loves his wings at the dawn of day.
Thank you, Ben and Fiona. As Marie said, the next part of our programme takes place in the community centre. If you wish to make your way down to the community centre, we'll see you there in a short while. Thank you very much.
podium, please. Art. For the order of 141 LH2011, please move the vehicle as it's causing an obstruction. 141 LH2011, please move the vehicle.
I didn't help out.